Well. We sit here a little bit frustrated. UCLA, not even the top 10 in the first rankings. Mind boggling that they're not. So let's talk about it with an angry tone of voice. Thanks for making this your podcast of choice. Locked on to UCLA. Let's rock and roll.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, it's Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. It's Locked On UCLA. Thanks for making it your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's your team every day. Thanks for making it your first listen each and every day. You can also find it on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for your support. In the meantime, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. You can post your job free with LinkedIn Jobs. I heard there's an opening on the college football selection committee, rankings, whatever it may be, because obviously they don't know what they're doing, because all those rankings were whack the first release of the college football playoff rankings, the CFP, whatever you want to call it. UCLA was not going to be near the top four. Let's get that clear. They were not going to be near the top four, probably near the top 8, top 7, whatever it may be. But UCLA seems pretty clear that they're a top 10 team to this point of the season, and they have been very good. They've taken care of business. Their only loss this season was to a top 10 team on the road. But whatever it is, UCLA seems to continue to get no respect, including sitting right behind Ole Miss and a 2-loss LSU in the 10 spot, which thus bumped the Bruins either from the 10 or 11 to the lowest ranking that anybody of merit has, the Bruins, at the number 12 spot, which seems to be hampering UCLA based off their strength of schedule. It seems like, all right, year by year, you just never know who's going to be good when it comes to strength of schedule. But how much can the Bruins be knocked when they had a big name opponent like Michigan on this schedule and they backed out, and it looks like Michigan, who's unbeaten, is getting hurt by their strength of schedule? Oh, whoop-de-doo, you backed out. You could have played UCLA, and boy, oh boy, that could have been a top 10 collision and thus changed the course of the college football rankings for the first release. Whatever it is, it's UCLA sitting on the outside, which they would be, right? In the top 4, a top 8. They would be sitting on the outside looking in. It doesn't bode well for UCLA despite their minimal odds. The other day I was dabbling on the ESPN had like a playoff simulator. Oh, who can make the playoff? They had UCLA with one of their worst with the worst odds of the top 12 remaining or top 10. So you couldn't even mess with UCLA. So the Bruins continue to get no respect. And yes, while they had their big make it or break it national TV moment against Oregon College game day, everybody looking ready to give the Bruins respect if they went to Eugene and got the win. They did not. They came back, hammered Stanford, and now the 7-1 Bruins have to settle with a much lower rank, not much, but a lower ranking than what they had from either the AP pollsters or the coaches. Both have been willing to accept that UCLA is a top 10, top 11 team. But the fact that LSU and Ole Miss are ahead of the Bruins, SC ahead of UCLA, considering the Bruins beat the team that beat SC, and UCLA dominated Utah, and Utah beat USC by 1 point at home. All right, you can go with correlations here and there, but there's a lot of things that are fairly interesting about this top 4, this college football playoff, whatever it is. TCU's not even in it. Michigan's not even in it. It's just a funky ranking with some aspects and whatever it may be. And even if there was the expansion to the top 12 with the playoff, the college football playoff, which is expanding to 12, which will be another part of the focal point when it comes to later in the middle part of this podcast. But the 12-team college football playoff, UCLA sits at 12. They'd be in, right? No, they would not. Because it is the 6 top-ranked conference champions. So obviously that would mean 5 Power 5 and theoretically a group of 5, depending on the year. That's normally how it would slate in college football. And Tulane, who currently sits as the 19th ranked team in the country, would actually take the 12th and final spot in an expanded 12-team playoff. So even though UCLA is in the 12th spot, with an expanded talk of 12 teams, the Bruins still would not be in a playoff like that. As it is, there's only 4 teams, and UCLA is going to have to deal with that. But it is quite interesting to see the lack of respect the Bruins are getting and just how wonky these first ranking. I don't really know what they're watching. I mean, UCLA has played bad, certainly in some non-conference games, but outside the South Alabama game, a lot of those games ended in dominant Bruin victories. UCLA ranked win over Washington. Of course, not now and in the eyes of the committee, but Washington's playing a ranked Oregon State. That could really help out UCLA standing. It's funny that the Bruins, even though they haven't played SC or they're not going to play Oregon State this year, with 5 ranked Pac-12 teams overall, it seems like the Pac-12 is getting more rep on the football side of things, but the Bruins seem to be the team benefiting the least out of all of it. Oregon, all right, top 10, they're looking good. SC, well, they see Lincoln Riley and they're just going to throw him in the top 10 just because that's how it is. And then you have Utah, who sits there with 2 losses, not getting the same respect that a 2-loss Ole Miss team is getting, considering Utah is way below SC despite beating them in a close game. And well, all right. LSU beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss led big, and then LSU ended up blowing them out at the end. Whatever it may be, Ole Miss, it's just kind of funky the way it came out. I was really stunned. For some reason, even though UCLA wouldn't be between the top 4, I sat there like the goober I was and the loser, like, all right, why is this ranking going to be any different than the other first releases? Why am I going to watch this show? And I watched it only to be more disappointed than the rest. The lowest ranked team to have ever made the college football playoff in the first ranking, Ohio State in 2014, they were ranked 16th at the time of the opening ranking. Ohio State was 16, went on a crazy run, snuck in with the crazy controversy in the first year of the college football playoff, and ended up winning the national championship in 2014 in early 2015 calendar year. So for UCLA, they don't have to climb as many spots as Ohio State did, but they need a lot of help, whether it comes from the Big 12. Initially, you need TCU to drop one of these next few games with Texas and Baylor coming up, and then potentially lose a Big 12 playoff. UCLA, of course, needs SC to not drop any more games, would have to beat them, go forward, and beat an Oregon team, hopefully, and then that would be 2 potential top 10 wins at home in our neutral site to add to the resume that nobody's giving much respect to the Bruins. Probably need 2 different SEC teams to lose, whether it be Tennessee to stumble down the rest of the way, Alabama to take a loss, whatever it may be. You just can't have 2 SEC teams, Clemson. All these things need to happen if UCLA is to make a top 4. And while this isn't a full-on advocating for the Bruins to do it, crazier things have happened. And Ohio State that year lost at home to a 7-6 Virginia Tech team by 2 scores, 35-21, and went on a crazy run. That was the whole talk of college football. You lose early and then win out late. You don't lose late or in the middle of the season as the Bruins did, but of course, with the schedule the Bruins had, they were not going to lose early and still be respected and not mocked for the schedule they had. But you remember, Michigan pulled out. It's their fault. How much can you discredit the Bruins for their schedule when they had a team on the calendar that was big name and is ranked higher than the Bruins, and they pulled out? In the end, we cannot talk about it until those 2 teams are Big Ten rivals. Pretty soon, right? Pretty soon, you know. But not everybody's happy about UCLA and SC moving to the Big Ten. I'm not sure if you guys heard about the letter of one very outspoken Bruin and his incendiary comments about the move from the Pac 12, Pac 10, whatever it may be, from his iteration from way back when, from the West Coast side of things, the Pac 10, the Pac 12 in its current iteration, moving to the Big Ten. I think you guys know who I'm talking about. But first, let's get you guys all excited about how to post your job for free with LinkedIn Jobs. And nowadays, you might be wondering, it's coming to the end of the year. There's potentially new hires every day that are high stakes wagers for small businesses. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, which is why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs help you hire and find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can use screening questions, which are simple tools to help you focus on the candidates you like to find, hire, and interview faster and you can do it for free, which is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Who was I talking about? Who was I talking about when it came to the likes of this crazy outspoken Bruin? Well, the Conference of Champions. The Conference of Champions. Conference of Champions. You guys know who I'm talking about. It's none other than the lovable Bill Walton. And for Bill Walton, he had a very, very nicely penned letter, just not so friendly in terms of UCLA's move to the Big Ten. He wrote it and sent it in. John Canzano posted it. He's a big guy that's been following the Pac-12 West Coast sports and this move for UCLA and SC moving to the likes of the Big Ten. And coming up soon, the UC Regents will put down their lay of the law and their letter of the law as to what the UCLA implications are of moving without their quote unquote asking of the Regents, and whether the Bruins get punished and whether or not they get a slap on the wrist, or if they get nothing, whether they have to do something with Cal or whatever it is, money, whatever it is. That Regents meeting, it's bubbling that they're going to come out with their ruling, their official, not emergency study, but their official study and research into it will come out with the ruling soon. But now here's our official ruling, the thoughts of Bill Walton. Simply, what does he think about it? He penned a letter about UCLA's wrong turn, going deep into how UCLA, he's a proud UCLA alum, Bill Walton was saying, and this is how he starts it. I'm Bill Walton. I'm a California native, resident, engaged citizen, voter, and taxpayer. I'm a product of California's terrific public school systems. I'm a proud UCLA alum. This is how he starts the poem. I forgot the opening line. All progress requires change. Not all change is progress. That's how it starts. And then he goes through these laundry list of why he's qualified, Bill Walton, and such and such. And then after saying all progress requires change, not all change is progress. Well, he says, I'm not in favor of UCLA's recent announced decision to leave the Pac-12 Conference of Champions, nor their desire of their move to join the Big Ten. I don't like this attempted move. I don't support it. I hope it does not happen. UCLA is a public school that is supposed to serve the interests of the state of California, one of the world's greatest schools, brands, and he just says, all right, well, he hopes going through UCLA, it changes. He hopes that whatever happens, my hope and dream is that this proposed move by UCLA, my alma mater, will be rescinded. There's a laundry list of ideas he goes through, which includes the negative impact on health, excessive travel, which helps the negative impact on mental health for the UCLA athletes, student athletes, physical, and mental tolls, the increased costs, how it's contrary to what the sustainability goals are of UCLA and the UC systems, and how the team model, whatever it is, the California dream, plan, and business model is different. And saying college football, college sports has turned into all about money and greed. In football, it's all about money with the move to the Big Ten. Well, certainly that's the case. That to this day, where Bill Walton ends his letter saying, I'm not proud, and I hope, as a proud UCLA alum, Bill Walton says that it gets rescinded, and he's made his voice heard to the UC Board of Regents, which, as I mentioned, is going to come out with a ruling whether they go crazy and try to block it, whether they sit there and try to give UCLA some fines, however that's going to work, or they give UCLA a slap on the wrist. Well, Martin Jarmond has been interviewed on various shows, various media entities, going through and discussed, well, you have to strike first. You have to go. This ain't Cobra Kai, but you have to be proactive and not reactive. Here I am sitting in the second segment of this podcast, freaking out about how UCLA isn't respected and is below two lame SEC teams that the UCLA Bruins should be ranked higher than. If they're in the Big Ten, maybe they leap that. And in the benefit of that, they would be with more money. Okay, let's talk about this, the good and the bad. We've discussed this more and again until this happens, and even going down the line in the deep future, not the near future, but way in the future. This will still be an interesting, very controversial time of the UCLA athletics history when they make this transition. You can talk about saving all the Olympic sports, other sports that may have been cut that Stanford, as we saw, tried and attempted to do with some of their sports, only to have outcry. UCLA is doing something that they're trying to be proactive, going with USC in very different deals, as Martin Drummond has pointed out in very separate interviews, variety of times, that, they're individual of each other, but they eventually figured out both teams coming together and both universities going to the Big Ten. For the UCLA side of things, it does feel wrong to go to the Big Ten. It just seems like with all this grade, there doesn't need to be. It's just sad that college sports has come to this way. So it does hurt UCLA. We're not going to go play in Oregon or a Stanford or a Cal, but it is interesting to go and play an Ohio State, a Michigan, Michigan. No, yeah, Michigan. We'll say that again, Michigan. Although I visited Michigan, it's very fun. But the state of Michigan, not the university. But it's just interesting how UCLA, they had to be proactive, right? It stings as a fan college sports to see all this movement, realignment, and shifting to where the big dogs, even the big dogs are, swallowing the other dogs whole, whatever it is, they're just gobbling down on the much smaller schools. And it is sad to see, but you can't fault UCLA for doing it. With the trends, UCLA seemed like was, hey, is their brand still meaningful? Well, yes, in an academic standpoint, various athletic standpoints. Even Bill Walton says, all right, well, football is the driving force for this move. 99% of UCLA's championships, national championships, have come from every sport but football. That's very true. I agree with Bill Walton on quite a few of these points, but that doesn't negate the need and the sheer thoughts that UCLA moving to the Big Ten is a very smart move. Do I like it? I've gone various times. You go back and forth. You're like, "Ah, I'm a person who doesn't like change. My family can tell you that so much, so much. But here we are, and it's a very strategic, big, bold decision by the UCLA Bruins athletic staff to make this happen. It is. It is. For UCLA to go through and sit there with the Bill Walton letter and talk about and watch him say, all right, I don't like this move. As he's always said on national TV when he does his broadcast, the Conference of Champions. Well, UCLA is trying to change what the idea is to be a champion, or maybe they're not and they're just trying to get money, which is maybe the real champion goal here, how to make money and take advantage of the whole situation. Bill Walton's not in favor of it. I understand his complaints, his outcries. There's been so many episodes already of this, but it's interesting to see Bill Walton, a very outspoken, important alumni in the broadcasting world, very, pro staying on the West Coast, being UCLA, be a brand of itself. It's already a big brand, stand out, right? But it is a different landscape. It's shifting, and UCLA made their power play. They're moving, and you can't fault them for that. And while I don't want to say I'm fully in support of the Big Ten move, it is smart for a lot of reasons. And Martin Drummond said, hey, we're trying to do things, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but clearly the move is we're trying to do things differently here at UCLA and improve the welfare for everybody while trying to keep the sports adding more money and doing different things while not getting left in the dust, but leaving the other ones behind to pick up the, whatever it is, the scraps from what UCLA leaves in the Pac 12 if the move's not rescinded. But it's an interesting time between now, the UC Regents and their new ruling, which we'll talk about it again on Locked On UCLA, and then we'll get to it when they move to the Big Ten in that landmark day when, Texas, Oklahoma, they eventually move to the SEC. All these days counting down to when the Bruins and the Trojans, technically hand in hand, walking towards Big Ten country as the Bruins, again, not only are they trying to make it driving for money, they're trying to earn, football will earn more respect when they go to the Big Ten, just by nature of being in it when they play the big dogs, depending on how they line up the divisions. And in the end, they're trying to do something good. That's the whole thing. They're trying to do something good, whether if it's money driven, as Rory McIlroy once said in a very different golf topic, saying, "Hey, every money based decision he has ever done, it doesn't always work out the best." I forgot what the exact quote was from Rory McIlroy. Of course, that's different between PGA Tour and Live Golf, and that's a whole nother topic. But again, a lot of these college sports decisions are being driven because of money and greed and everybody wanting more of it. You see these big deals being argued back and forth, and that's the simplicity of it. It's about money. Bill Walton doesn't like it. He likes the opposite of that. That's the basis of his letter. And while I agree with him, UCLA had to make this move. They made it, and we'll see how it plays out. We could all be wrong. Bill Walton could be right. Everything could be wrong. Or maybe this is a move that years down the road they'll write about it. I'll be old with gray hairs if I'm not already. And sitting there reading, I remember the day when they announced it and all the times we had podcasts talking about it, and that it might be either just a speck of dust in time or very monumental changing of the guard, changing the landscape of college sports forever, which is how it's leaning towards. You can bet on some things, but we can't bet on the future of how this college football landscape's going to be, But in the end, just remember that BetOnline is your number one source for betting football and basketball. Basketball season, UCLA starting their season coming up with the exhibition. I'm not going to bet on exhibition, but we'll talk about it coming up. But just remember, BetOnline. We're seeing basketball. You're seeing the likes of football, UCLA, ASU. We'll talk about that soon. Just find all the latest player developments with team matchups, news, and podcasts with in-depth analysis on every game with BetOnline. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, World Series. Phillies just crushed the Astros. What are the odds now that the Phillies are leading the World Series? To hold on, who knows? MMA, boxing, I've already quoted golf with Rory McIlroy. I'm not even a golf guy, and I'm quoting golf. Golf can be something fun to bet on. Just head to the website today for BetOnline or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. For UCLA, their game starts against the likes of Concordia. They start their exhibition season. If you remember, way back when, UCLA and the college basketball season used to start much later, almost a full 2 weeks later, or a full week later, closer to Thanksgiving, where UCLA and their basketball season would start closer to the 17th or the 16th, whatever it is. Already November 7th, UCLA is going to start against Sac State. But we get a brief glimpse, actually in person for some, on TV for others, through audio for the rest, or just through highlights, whatever it may be. UCLA, number 7, number 8, depending on which poll you use in the country, against Concordia University, Irvine. Concordia, there's quite a few Concordias out there, but Concordia from Irvine, who the Bruins will take on in an exhibition in Pauley Pavilion. It'll be on Pac-12 Network. They'll have an audio stream. But the Bruins technically tip off for the first time publicly tonight. There's been some open practices and some videos of practice. There's nothing like a game setting in the true regular season for the Bruins, as we're excited for basketball season just literally around the corner to start. 8:30 p.m. Monday, November 7th, the Bruins will tip off against Sac State, but tonight, 7:06 UCLA, which we'll recap briefly or a little bit tomorrow on Thursday, they play Concordia University, Irvine. What's interesting about UCLA and Concordia, they haven't played since having an exhibition back in 2009. UCLA having to hold on to barely beat Concordia way back in 2009, funny enough. UCLA in the fall of 2009, the 2009-10 season, a very forgettable season for UCLA. The Bruins had to have a late bucket from Mustafa Abdul-Hamid, a three-point shot with 16 seconds to go in an exhibition to beat the then the NAIA Concordia University Irvine squad 62-61. Concordia was leading by 8 points last time these two teams played almost 13 years ago. Remember, you had Malcolm Ali on that team, Abdul-Hamid. UCLA in that 2009-10 season, 14-18, coming off the end of the Josh Shipp and Darren Collison era, 2 years, or technically a year and a half removed from that third and final straight Final Four under Ben Howland. The Bruins, if you remember then went on to start the season in 09 and 2010, losing to Cal State Fullerton, eventually Long Beach State, and quite a few teams throughout their shocking season. 18 losses, under 500. It was a really odd time, the Ben Howland era. Lots of fond memories, though. But again, the Bruins barely beating Concordia the last time they beat him. What's funny, though, Jaime Hawkins Jr., both his mom and his dad, Jaime Sr. and Angela, were both players for the Concordia basketball teams. Jaime Sr. on the men's side, Angela on the women's side. Angela, who is then, not Angela Hawkes, but Angela Sather. She was a Hall of Famer in Concordia's Kenneth Walker Hall of Fame in 2008. And, if you're Jaime's parents, I know this is kind of a dumb question as we sit here wondering what's what here in this final segment of Locked On to UCLA. If you have your sibling, a family member, or your own child, and you're a distinguished alumni, or even if you're not, say, a Bill Walton or even a Angela Hawkes, who is a Hall of Famer at Concordia, if you're just you're alumni of a different school, and say your kid is Jaime Hawkins Jr., do you show up as a joke, and do you wear your Concordia jersey or Concordia colors while still cheering for your kid? Or do you sit there in UCLA colors with your kid's jersey? Of course, both brother and sister playing for both the men's and women's basketball teams for the Hawkeses. Jaime sticking around for another year as UCLA says, all right, we'll rock and roll with the likes of Jaime Hawkins Jr. and Gabriella is on the women's team. So they've already documented the brother and sister combo. So it's funny that, all right, they're probably pretty ingrained in the UCLA culture by now with jerseys and gear, but do you dare, both father and father and mother, mother and father, do they play a joke and wear some Concordia Eagles gear? Does mother wear the Concordia jersey and the father wear the UCLA jersey? What happens? What do you do? What do you do with the likes? What would you do? Would you go sit there in your colors of your former team, your former university, your alma mater, or do you cheer on the kid? My father's always told me you cheer on your family and you wear their jersey and you put on, the school that they're representing. You put on their colors and cheer for them. I'd be the type of person that says, I want my team to win. I want my brother and sister to put up 30 points and a losing effort. Maybe I'm a jokester. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe they win a title and it's a close game, whatever it may be. Who knows? What would you want if you're listening at home? Back to the game. It's our first glimpse of this freshman from Amari Bailey, Adam Bona. Everybody excited for the UCLA Bruins. Of course, you have the super seniors or the seniors in Tiger Campbell, Jaime Hawkins Jr., who still have more eligibility to exhaust, but it very well seems like UCLA, with their 6 freshmen, are riding with the likes of a young mixed with veteran roster with a lot of upside. You never know how the youngsters can play. It could always be like that 2008-2009 team where UCLA was a second round exit against Villanova, or this could be a team where Mick Cronin says, no more expectation videos, Zach. The only expectation is Final Four or bust for UCLA until they get to a national championship with Mick Cronin and try to make that bust or national championship, which they're trying to build that as a year in, year out expectation for the Bruins with Mick Cronin. We'll be excited. The best possible scenario is UCLA wins by 30 points. Everybody stays healthy, yada, yada, yada. Adem Bona can take the floor, which he did not if against San Diego State. That'll be key to see if he takes the floor. He did not against the Aztecs in that closed-door scrimmage where UCLA beat about a top 15, top 20 ranked team in San Diego State, reportedly 89-87 in a closed-door scrimmage. Hawkes Jr. and Tiger Campbell looking great, combining for nearly 60 points. We'll see what the three-point shooting looks like for UCLA this year, who's taking the bulk of the shots, and most importantly for this game, let's see, one, how the freshmen look and how they're operating in a Mick Cronin system. A lot of it's been freshmen. Well, how coached up and how ready are they in the beginning of the part of the season, despite a very light load in the first week or so for UCLA's schedule before picking up and going to Vegas against 2 high-quality opponents. One they know, the other one they don't, against the likes of Illinois and then either Virginia or I forget who it is right before Thanksgiving. But UCLA Very easy schedule in the beginning, theoretically. And then they can pick things up moving fast with a very tough neutral site road game schedule in the non-conference for the Bruins in the early portion of November. Basically, the big thing is stay healthy, have fun, blow them out, leave no doubt, and turn it into a route. That's how we're going to wrap things up with Locked On UCLA today. Thanks for making Locked On UCLA your first listen each and every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. You make that your second listen. They got their take of the day. They recap big games. They have stories, big stories. NFL, lots of crazy trades. I didn't even know the NFL trade deadline can be more exciting than the Major League Baseball trade deadline. But somehow it might have been this year, here in 2022. They've got everything on Locked On Sports today. Check out their take of the day. I wonder what they take about how UCLA was a 12th ranked team in the initial college football playoff rankings. Not too good. UCLA basketball. We'll recap the exhibition a little bit tomorrow. We'll preview ASU and more. Bruins on upset alert watch. We'll talk about it and more. It's Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer saying so long. Get ready for that 8-clap, UCLA fans. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins. Get that in there. Go Bruins. Yeah.